Hello, how are you today? Do you want to dive into a book that might just surprise you, whether it becomes your next favorite or one you might skip? Let's find out what readers are saying about it.
Kelsey Feline Booktrovert, who has 21 likes, says, Happy release day, 3.5 stars. I'll start off by saying I loved the writing in this book. The emotions, the humor, the frustrations, all on point, described beautifully. I just couldn't fully get behind Margot, the FMC. I feel like her character was a little all over the place. Her internal dialogue didn't really match what she said and how she acted. And she committed a fatal flaw for me personally when there was a conflict for the two characters to overcome. Earlier in the story, Forrest, the MMC, learns something about her, and when they next discuss it, he is on her side without hesitation and even tries to pump her up. And that's without her having to explain the whole thing. A very similar situation comes later, but the roles are reversed, and Margot immediately takes the other person's side. No questions asked, without hearing his side of the story. For me, the question I have to ask is, how solid is the relationship? This love that's supposedly building. If it implodes that quickly with little effort, those aren't the kind of stories I personally want to read about. But everything else here was so good. Forrest was a great MMC. The Alaskan setting was enjoyable. And the supporting characters were all great in their own way. And again, the writing was enjoyable. I'll be more than willing to read any follow-ups Victoria Lavine comes out with. Thank you NetGalley and Atria Books for this arc in exchange for an honest review. KitKat, who has 41 likes, says, Thank you to NetGalley and the publisher for an arc in exchange for an honest review. Overview. Let's get into it. Shall we? This book was just so funny, and it honestly made my heart happy reading it. Any trope but you centers around our FMC, Margot, who's on a 6-week forced vacation in Alaska when she meets the lumberjack man of her dreams anyway. They have this whole meet cute thing and the whole shebang. But here's the catch: she's a romance author who doesn't believe in he's. But she writes them. Like, hold up. Are you telling me that when Victoria Lavine wrote Margot and Forrest, she secretly envisioned them not ending up together? My life is a lie. Continuing with the review. Though, both Forrest and Margot have people who they are overly protective of and feel responsible for, which makes for a lot of emotion moments. In all honesty, the combination between moments where I was on verge of tears and laughing was near perfection with this book. Having complex relationships between characters can sometimes make the book feel very heavy, but the humor made the mood a lot lighter. This book did have a number of moments where I couldn't help but cringe though. Especially the whole damsel in distress vibe. Margot is honestly kind of badass, and I love her for that. But as soon as she's with Forrest, she's falling into his arms and getting hypothermia, which skin-to-skin contact helps cure. Catch my drift? And yes, I did search it up on Google to see if skin-to-skin contact actually helps hypothermia. And yes, it does. Relationships, guys. Forrest listens to Taylor Swift. He's a Swiftie. My book boyfriend alarms are sounding. And he's like heroic lumberjack jacked core, and she's a romance author. Some might say it's a romance book waiting to be written. Teehee. Features enemies to lovers, lumberjack ex-author, forbidden romance, Hallmark-style rom-com, damsel in distress vibes, spice, closed door, HEA, forced proximity. Now playing peace. T Swift, would it be enough if I could never give you peace? We have come to the part of my review that most definitely includes spoilers. Read at your own risk, guys. The moose scene. The first time they meet, she runs into his arms because she thinks a moose is a bear. But, of course, the moose is actually Forrest's little moose friend. Of course. Forgive me for thinking we might be gotten over the jumping into his arms phase. The ending was really amazing though, however predictable, and I was in such a good mood for the rest. of the day. When he comes back, I was smiling so hard my cheeks hurt. Happy sigh. Oh my god. This book had me laughing so hard. Features enemies to lovers, lumberjack ex-author forbidden. Romance Hallmark style rom-com damsel in distress vibes spice closed door RTC 33. Thank you to NetGalley for an arc in exchange for an honest review. I am very excited to read this book. Help. Violet, who has 22 likes, says, debut Alaskan wilderness enemies to lovers forced proximity. One sleeping bag slow burn Dulpov third act breakup. This book is cute, hits all the marks. I just so happened to read it in the midst of some amazing 5-star books, so I fear it may be a bit forgettable for me. 3.5525. Thank you to Atria NetGalley for a gifted arc in exchange for my review. Alex, who has 31 likes, says, but the thing I've learned about hollowness, the kind that's carved from peonies, that the deeper it goes, the more room it leaves for love. And when love finally rushes in, it fills every dark and twisty crevice with a light almost too brilliant to bear. The premise of this book had me hooked from the beginning. A romance author getting cancelled for not believing in her books. Happily ever afters ends up retreating to a remote lodge in Alaska and meeting a grumpy proprietor cancer researcher whose one rule is to avoid dating guests at his family's lodge. Both MCs, Margot Bradley and Dr. Forrest Wakefield, are so similar in how selfless and caring they are for their loved ones. Margot for her sister Savannah and her struggles with an autoimmune disorder. Forrest for her father Trapper and his obstacles with overcoming a spinal injury. It's very admiring to see how dedicated and devoted they were to dropping everything in their lives just to be at their side. 247. As so many people often do in real life. However, I wasn't very interested in the romance when it did happen between them about halfway, just because I felt like it was solely based on looks and attraction. I did love the quippy and snarky banter between the two of them, which I thought was hilarious. They did also have conversations about being caretakers, how Forrest found out how Margot didn't believe in true romance, and how Margot found out how Forrest sacrificed his life back in California to stay in Alaska. But I felt like the instant attraction from when they first meet and build up towards them finally embracing their growing attraction to each other fell flat for me, and I wasn't very heavily invested in them because of it. I would have liked to see them have more heartfelt interactions in lieu of them arguing over petty things or lusting over each other's looks, just to add a bit of a different dimension to their romance. Because they got together earlier than I would have expected, I did feel like I had to force myself to continue reading just because they were bound to have a roadblock or two in their way. And I am so glad I kept going. Margot and Forrest's relationship is plagued with so much uncertainty between their optimism for their relationship working out and their shared fears of thinking about themselves over the loved ones they've spent their lives taking care of. I feel like they have a unique, shared experience that not everyone will be able to understand unless you've been in their shoes, and that's what brought them closer to each other despite their constant fear of not letting anyone in too close. I thought it was so interesting to see the themes of falling in love with someone but also falling out of love with them for factors that they can't control, as well as the fear of trusting and letting someone into your life knowing that they could walk out anytime. It was something I felt tugged at my heartstrings, and it was so satisfying to see both Margot and Forrest navigate their fears for this on their own terms and with their support from their loved ones. I think the overall theme of learning that it's okay to care about others but to also swallow the hard pill that sometimes you hurt them by not learning to live your life for yourself too was very important to include and was executed very well. I think my favorite parts of this book was seeing Margot's relationship with Savannah and Forrest's relationship with his father. I think I would have liked to see more of Forrest and Trapper's relationship because despite him doing A whole 180 and leaving his life behind for his father. You didn't really get to see many scenes of them bonding or what their relationship was like outside of Forrest serving as his father's main caretaker. Margot and Savannah, on the other hand, made my heart swell, and it was so heartwarming to see how much love they had for each other. Savannah deciding to carve her own path out of life and encouraging Margot to live her life for herself and not out of fear for her sister's flare-ups was so bittersweet but full of love that I wouldn't have complained if there were more scenes with them together. Their relationship was symbiotic, and you could feel the love they had for one another in Savannah's letters and in the stories Savannah recalled of Margot putting her little sister first all the time. I would give this a read to anyone who's been burned by the flames of heartbreak, in need of a reminder that it's okay to put yourself first once in a while, and still hoping for their chance of a happily ever after. You'll find that you're not the only one when you meet Margot and Forrest in any trope, but there are some people who come into your life even for just a moment who have the power to fundamentally change you forever. Trope's romance author FMCX cancer researcher MMC dual POV enemies to lovers caretaker representative forced proximity 1/10. Snowden. Thank you to Victoria Lavine, NetGalley, and Atria Books for providing me with a free EARC in exchange for my honest review. Marie, who has 32 likes, says, while I did find the premise of this super fun, the execution was not. I am afraid, and I am kinda sad about it. The idea of a romance author secretly rewriting the endings of her novels to reflect the harsh reality in her opinion only for everyone finding out and basically upending her whole career, and then her going to Alaska to change it up and write a thriller while meeting a hot doctor, that sounded great to me. My reading experience though was mostly filled with some serious secondhand embarrassment, an unlikable FMC and a romance I didn't care about. I just couldn't stand Margot. She came across very rude and entitled and defensive. I can't for the life of me figure out why Forrest would ever be interested in her, seeing the way she acted towards him, and with an unlikable main character. You can't win in a romance setting. I need to like the main characters in a romance, or it won't work for me. I did enjoy the Alaska setting, but that was about it. Thank you to NetGalley and the publishers for the arc in exchange for an honest review. One last holiday romance.